Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with the 31 days of cop films and gangster films from the period from 1970 to the present day. So that's a wide range of years, but hopefully we can talk about some interesting movies along the way of these 31 days. Now, when it comes to interesting movies and the gangster film genre, I think there are many choices that one can fall upon. And one such interesting film from my vantage point, it is a really interesting film today in the gangster film genre that I'd like to speak to you about today. It is a special film, a high, intense, top-notch, highest quality caliber of film entertainment that is so sweeping in its dynamic energy and epic scope, crossing time and space and generations, talking about the sprawl and the nature of a type of gangland warfare, intense rivalries on the one hand, while also linking it with a political and economic ramifications of the history of the country. And the country that we're speaking about is India, and we are talking about the period of time in the latter half of the 20th century, specifically leading into the 21st century. And so we have the focus point being the political and economic ramifications from a historical context that are linked to the economics involving coal and the coal mines in this particular area of Dambad, or specifically Wasepur. And I mentioned these two names, these two locations, these two places or environments, because indeed this is very key to the story, integral to the story, plot, characters, and yes, the title. And before I speak any further, let me say that this is the work from 2012. This is Anurag Kashyap's masterpiece epic film. This is Gangs of Wasepur. Gangs of Wasepur is a crime saga. It is also a family saga. It is also a political and social epic that is linked inextricably to the social and economic, socioeconomic fabric of 20th century India, both in terms of the relationship with the British and also independence and beyond, and also how that lays the foundation for, as I say, this cross-generational story that spans decades, and also it covers levels of family going down generation to generation to generation, and seeing the struggles of family life intertwined with the gang-based or criminal organization-based rivalries. And those rivalries are oftentimes or sometimes premised upon, say, greed or avarice, or perhaps that is related to a central theme involving coal mining and the economy, and how that seems to be leading to a sense of perceived economic control over a particular community, thus the basis for the power and authority for a number of these groups that we see. And we see not one, but we see a number of groups trying to, in essence, vie for control of these various, say, sectors or areas that are, again, intertwined and based. We see this interaction between the various families play out over years, over decades, and specific events are also portrayed in a way that might seem maybe trivial or maybe might seem somewhat inconsequential in the moment as part of, say, the day-to-day living and activity that just comes and goes, as do many memories of the past, as it were. However, what's one of the great strengths of a film like Gangs of Wasepur is that we understand over the course of its epic running time, and I'll get to that momentarily as well, over the course of its epic running time, we realize that details and things that might have happened in the past to generations above us might still hold deep-rooted and quite significant ramifications for the younger generations to come, even years, decades after the fact. And this type of linkage is incredibly poetic. It is very much, there's a cinematic quality that's very powerful in terms of the method of storytelling. And yes, going back to the linkage to the socio-political and economic dynamic of the social setting that we are involved in, there is, I think, also a type of commentary in place there in terms of the way in which things that have happened in the past have very direct and concrete and oftentimes quite severe and significant impact to the present day generations. And so it is all combined and intertwined in this 5 hour plus epic. Now, let me get to this here as well. Gangs of Wasseypur is, we understand it was designed initially as one singular film, but then due to its very, very long running time, relative to, say, other mainstream films that might have, say, 2 hours, give or take, this is 5 hours plus. And so we might oftentimes see it as Gangs of Wasseypur Part 1 and then Gangs of Wasseypur Part 1. So Part 2, excuse me. So divided into two parts. And oftentimes, Part 1 has a running time, I think, of approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes, and as does Part 2, in fact. It's roughly the same. So sometimes you'll see it marketed as one whole film, or maybe oftentimes you'll see it treated as Part 1 and Part 2. But I think we can also treat it as one continuous story based upon, as I say, the production history details, and also based upon Kashyap's own discussions about the film and how Kashyap sees this overall work, this overarching work. So however one digests it, or however one attempts to approach it, either in one sitting or maybe in two separate sittings with Part 1 and Part 2, or even beyond that, maybe even more, say, subdivided sittings, whatever the case may be, you are so in for, I think, a supercharged, like to the max, energized to the max film indeed. I mean, there is so much going on, and the time goes by so quickly. It's one of those amazing things about films like Gangs of Wasseypur, which is it's packed with so much information and so much detail that you never feel its running time. It just goes from plot point to plot point to plot, but never in a way that feels arduous or feels like it's going, quote unquote, by the numbers. It feels very organic, very fresh, and very natural in its sequence of events, while at the same time covering a whole wide range of narrative terrain, while still feeling so maybe hyper-realized in terms of how it renders its pacing. And so, in other words, it never feels slow. It never feels dragged down. On the contrary, everything is so well-timed and well-charged that one doesn't feel the running time at all. In fact, it feels like this. It feels also so wonderfully episodic, too, because of all the nature of the characters and so many characters that we are dealing with. Of course, we might figure on certain central characters, main characters, for example, characters that are members of this clan or family known as the Khan family. And so we might be focusing a lot on their particular stories, or the people that are associated with that particular side. But they aren't the only clan or group or family that is involved. There are multi levels to this. There are many rivalries that emerge, and even hidden rivalries as well as not so hidden rivalries and the like. And so this is all to say that there's so much characterization going on. Plot is, I think, it's fairly easy to latch onto, and there is a sense in which this film presents its information and presents its characters and stories. It might be difficult to get absolutely everything in one sitting, but I think at the same time, it presents it so well in such a great way that one can still go along with the general trajectory of these many myriad of characters that we are following, and not just in a single a space of time, but also cross generationally as well. So it's a amazing feat just how well it's organizing all of the bits of myriad bits of information and characters that are within its single umbrella. And my goodness, what a challenge that is, and what a great achievement it is to have been able to corral all this information so succinctly and so well. And again, the pacing is absolutely dynamite. And indeed, that's one of the great things about this, is there's so much going on. There's so many details, little things that one might have seen, say, early on, might not necessarily have an impact or significance that one realizes until sometime later. And then you get to that point sometime later and think, oh my goodness, was that what I think it was? And then it makes you want to go back after the film's over to the very beginning and rewatch it to try to catch those details. So that's one of the great things too about the allure of a film as well constructed like Gangs of Wasseypur. It covers so much terrain, it has so many details of character, and so many ever-changing relationship dynamics that are going on almost like at once, but then at the same time some things emerge and are introduced early on and then they disappear, but then they reemerge again, or one realizes significance later on, and then it catches one. And for me, and I catch those details, and every time I see it, I feel like I'm catching something new. I want to go back and watch it over again to see how it first emerged, the beginning parts of this film, Gangs of Wasseypur. So and that is to say, it's packed with information. It has this great allure. It, I think, does so well upon initial viewing or initial sitting to tell its story or stories. Because my goodness, so many great stories packed into what this single film. It's like a super deluxe entertainment to the max in terms of that. And the brilliance of its plot construction is such that it allows you enough information to keep up with all the things that are going on in first sitting. You're caught up with the almost adrenaline rush of what's going on, and then at the same time you sit back and you think about the details, and my goodness, so many more things, so many more connections develop. It makes you want to go and watch it again. It's so great. It is so great. Gangs of Wasseypur is a family crime saga epic to the max. It is a high octane charge. There are some scenes here that are very well staged in terms of the confrontation scenes. There are indeed a number of very difficult, tough to watch scenes in terms of the violence. But it's never done in a way that feels sort of gratuitous, or it never maybe not earned. These moments are always earned, and they always have a strong impact. Of course, they are done in terms of the cinematic, visceral quality of, say, on-screen special effects that are designed to depict scenes of violence in films like gangster films and crime films and the like. And so that's part of the particular genre, of course, but they're done, I think, so skillfully, and they are applied so well, in that they are applied to scenes and situations that are meant to suggest shock and surprise, and the real viciousness of a number of the characters that we are meeting in the landscape of Gangs of Wasseypur on the one hand. And it's also meant to remind us of the constant struggles between the various poles of positioning of all the groups that are essentially competing with each other for a share of the pie, or maybe as big a share of a pie as possible. And indeed, too, these scenes of violence are occurring at a lot of key moments, and they affect the characters that we have essentially grown to meet and love and abhor and get to know. And so in this process, we understand that these things can happen even to people that we have maybe gotten to know the most during the course of this film. And indeed, too, I mentioned the ever-changing character dynamics. There are characters that are friends one time and they become enemies. There are hidden friendships. There are hidden rivalries that only emerge after a certain setup. There are Machiavellian elements to it that are that are not quite, that maybe remain hidden until certain key climactic points of the plot, etc. But the point of that too is that even in this sort of ever-changing aspect of the dynamism of the evolving relationships among the myriad of characters, this also means too that we as viewers are shifting, or maybe our allegiances to one character over the other. And so maybe there's a character that we might loathe at first, but then might we come to admire, or might we get to know a little bit more as the film progresses, or vice versa. And within that context of shifting dynamics and our own sense of who we are sympathizing with, and that too might change because the dynamics of the on-screen relationships are changing. Our connections to the characters too change as a result, and based upon those shifting changes to our reaction to these scenes of violence that occur, these very shocking cataclysmic events that occur, I think have this almost beautifully applied off-kilter effect that really put one off balance in a way that is so absorbing and so affecting and really so shocking indeed. So this is a way to say that the effect of this film, Gangs of Wasseypur, is compounded so brilliantly by all the balancing that is taking place within its incredible sweep, 5 hour plus running time. And once again, it goes by so quickly. It goes by so quickly. So if you have not seen Gangs of Wasseypur and you are a fan of the genre, the crime film genre, organized crime genre, gangster type of film genre, Gangs of Wasseypur is for you. I think in a lot of the marketing materials, especially for for example, this Blu-ray, it's often been maybe regarded or compared to works like, say, Goodfellas or The Godfather. And I think those comparisons are very apropos. There is a type of maybe one can see some connections that exist between and among those works. It also stands on its own 2 feet so triumphantly, and so with such confidence, and a way that is also very witty and sly and vicious and just no holds barred entertainment. And again, that is so multi-level. It is truly, truly outstanding. So Gangs of Wasseypur, if you have not seen this, please, please, please check it out if you can. Now, before I go too, I should say that I was so fortunate way back in the day when this was this not DVD, this Blu-ray, this 2-disc Blu-ray from, at the time, was known as Cinelicious Pix, when it was when this Blu-ray was made available. Now I think this is out of print at the moment, and I'm not sure how one can watch Gangs of Wasseypur. I think there was maybe some streaming options available to it. I'm not sure, but in any event, my dear friends, if you have the opportunity to watch Gangs of Wasseypur, and if you are in the mood for this type of crime saga epic, this is for you. Believe me, this film is for you. It is truly outstanding. So this is the work, Gangs of Wasseypur. Okay, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very, very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.